Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kat and I make videos about books, writing and other random things living rent-free in my neurodivergent brain. Today we're gonna talk about my October TBR, and honestly I don't know how it's October already. September flew by and it wasn't the best month for me, to be honest. But I will probably talk a bit more about that in my September review video, which will come later on the channel. So my previous TBRs from August and September were very ambitious, and usually it pushes me to read more and I get really excited and I really want to get through as many books as I can, even though I'm not reading for the numbers, I'm reading for pleasure and I want to read books that I enjoy, but there are so many books I want to get to, and that's the thing that kind of pushes me to make ambitious TBR and try to get to those books I'm excited about as soon as possible. The reality is that it's not always possible, and sometimes the energy just isn't there, and September was a bit of a reading slump for me, despite having a very exciting TBR. So for October, I decided to pare things down a little bit and be less ambitious. So I'm feeling rather confident that I will be able to go through all the books I have on my list for this month. And then hopefully, if I'm having a good reading month, I might be able to read more than that's on my TBR. But my focus for this month will be the 7 books that I'm going to talk about now. The first 2 books that I want to read in October are books that I started in September but didn't get time to finish. The first book is Slow Productivity by Newport, and I'm like a good third, like between a third and half of the book in. I'm enjoying this, although I'm already quite familiar with the ideas in this book because I follow Cal Newport's newsletter, I sometimes listen to his podcast as well, so I'm already familiar with those ideas, and I really enjoyed some of his previous books, So Good They Can't Ignore You and Deep Work. I thought those were very well written and structured, had really in-depth ideas I really enjoyed, and I think it's similar in this one. I think the structure is also good. There's a lot of thought and craft going into this book, but it's much shorter than the previous ones and it feels a bit more like this kind of issue with a lot of self-help books that it could have been a blog post. I think there's a little bit of that with this one. I don't think there's as much meat as in his other books, although I'm still very much enjoying the ideas and all of that, and it's also probably my interpretation again because I'm familiar with those ideas. But again, I'm enjoying it. It's rather short and easy to read, so I'm hoping to get through this fairly quickly now. The second book is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen in this beautiful edition that I'm really happy with. I'm already a good chunk into this book. I read quite a lot of it while I was traveling and I'm very enjoying it so far, and I'm confident that I'm going to finish this in the next couple of days, I think. And it's been on my TBR for quite a few months, so I'm happy to have finally made it to this book and excited to be talking a little bit more about it in my monthly wrap-up. Just to give a word about what the book is about, we are following Freya in this fantasy North-inspired world with a lot of magic and Nordic gods, and it's quite compelling. She has some powers that she needs to keep secret, but very early on in the book some of that is revealed and you see her kind of learning to use that power and understanding the different things that she can do with it, which I really enjoy in this story. She's at the beginning of the book married with a terrible man and kind of wants him dead. Like, she has kind of a temper, and so she's kind of forced into a life that she has not chosen. She's not happy with it, but she's kind of bearing with it for the sake of her family, and she's kind of sacrificing herself and going along with this life to make sure that her family is provided for and then later on not hurt. as I said, I'm quite enjoying this and looking forward to see how it ends. I checked the second book is going to be released in May 2025, so there will be a bit of wait for me to read the rest of the story, but thankfully it's only a duology, so it's only going to be a few months wait. Next, I have 2 comic books that I got from the library. This is Monstress from Marjorie and Takeda. This was recommended by Steph Morgan in her video about kind of autumnal feral girl book recommendations, which I really enjoyed. I'm going to link it in the description below. And it's the story of Micah, who is a teenage girl, and she's tied somehow to a very powerful monster, I believe. So I don't know much about the story and I kind of want to go into it blind. But the thing that really grabbed my attention is the art style. I think the illustrations look very, very pretty and kind of the style that I really enjoy. And it's so beautiful that my husband immediately stole the first book from me. And then, I don't know if it's karma or something, but he started having allergies, probably because there's some dust on this library book. And so he stopped because of that. And I'm not happy that he got allergies. It's not nice, but that kind of made me chuckle because it felt a bit like, you stole my book and now it's just like karma getting back at you. But yeah, I'm very excited to dive into this and maybe discuss it with Steph later on. Next, I have a couple of buddy reads. One of them is a reread for me, and that's The Winter's Promise, I think the title is in English. This is the first volume in the Mirror Visitor series from Christelle Dabos. This is a French series, so I'm gonna be rereading it in French because that's the edition I have. And it's one of my favorite fantasy series. I love the first tome. I think it's the book that really got me back into fantasy. And yeah, I'm very excited. I'm gonna be buddy reading this with Steph Morgan. It's her first time reading it, so I really hope she likes it. And I'm very excited to have someone to speak about this book in more detail. So if you don't know, this book follows Ophelia, who is the Mirror Visitor. She has a couple of very interesting magic powers. The first one is that she's able to travel through mirrors. And the second one is that by touch, she's able to see the past of an object. The world in which this is set is kind of divided in different arches, kind of small worlds that are floating into space, and you can travel from one to the other. And she is engaged to a man from another arch, which I think is the north one, or like a very wintry one, which is kind of the theme of that first book. And she's very not pleased about that engagement, and she realizes that she's also brought into that marriage for political reasons that she doesn't really have control over and that she's not necessarily understanding. So there's a lot of mystery, political intrigue, and there's also romance in this. Again, I really, really love this book, so I'm very excited to be rereading it, especially as a buddy read with Steph Morgan. My second buddy read of the month is about Motherhood by Sheila Heti, and I'm reading this with a good friend of mine who's not on YouTube, so you're only gonna hear my thoughts about it, but I'm very excited to be reading it with her. And this is the story of a woman, I think in her 30s, who's pondering whether she wants to have children or not. And the back cover doesn't give you much more than that, but I've heard very good things about this book, and it's something that I'm quite excited to be discussing with my friend because she's a mother, but for the longest time she didn't want to have children, and that only changed when she met her current partner, who she just got married to, so very happy for her. And so we both have kind of similar and nuanced and complex thoughts about motherhood, and I think it's going to be very interesting reading it with her, so I'm very happy about it. And then the final book on my TBR for October is The Healing Season of Pottery by Yeon Somin, and this is a book I purchased in November. I only bought 2 books and this is one of them, so I'm quite proud of myself. This is the story of Yeon, who is suffering from burnout, and she discovers a pottery studio near the place where she lives, and she's kind of finding some peace and healing in that pottery studio, learning the art of pottery, which is something that I relate to on a number of levels, and it seems to be a very lovely and cozy read, something very heartwarming, so I was excited to pick this up during a recent trip. Those are the 7 books that I plan to read in October. I have many more books that I would like to get into if I manage to read more than those 7. So the priority will be the ones in my latest book haul video that you can watch somewhere around here or in the description below. I hope you have a wonderful reading month. Let me know in the comments if there is any book from my list that you've read or that you are excited for me to read. What are you excited to be reading this month? I assume a lot of people will be reading spooky things, so I'm really hoping you have a good October reading month with lots of exciting reads. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.